The BLU Vivo Air can be summed up in just 3 words: thin, premium, and cheap. It's a Blue device that not many people know about, but has the potential to sell millions. So here's what the BLU Vivo Air does right. Now, in terms of hardware, it features an incredibly thin body that measures in at just 5.1 millimeters thick, making it the thinnest smartphone currently available in America. It's also said to be the lightest smartphone currently available in the US, weighing just 97 grams. So together, it's very minimal in the hands. And it really makes sense for it to carry the Air name, as it almost is non-existent when carrying it around with you on the go. Now, in terms of build quality, this device is made with high quality materials, as it features a magnesium alloy frame around the entire device with chamfered edges. It also features Gorilla Glass 3 on the front and back of the device to protect it from scratches, all while adding a very nice premium contrast between the aluminum edges and the glass. If we take a look around the device, we'll find the standard power sleep on-off button and volume rocker on the left-hand side. There is nothing up on top, there is just a simple SIM card slot on the right-hand side, and micro USB charging port and 3.5mm headphone jack down below at the bottom. The front features a 4.8-inch 720p Super AMOLED display underneath that 5-megapixel front-facing camera, and also above the menu, home, and back capacitive touch navigation buttons. The back does have an 8-megapixel camera sensor and flash with that Gorilla Glass 3 back cover as well that I mentioned earlier, and this particular model does feature 16GB of internal storage. Now, if we power this guy on, the 4.8-inch 720p AMOLED display looks pretty good. It's an AMOLED panel, so the blacks don't use any power, so they are very deep and true to color. I also didn't notice any sort of yellowing to the whites or unusually high blue tints when viewing whites. It's pretty color accurate, it's not great, nor is it terrible. And overall, it's just a very nice display to look at. Granted, the resolution isn't very high. I'd say that's probably the biggest downside of this display. I can start to see individual pixels when I look really close up to the display, and the brightness just isn't really there. In direct sunlight, it can be definitely hard to see the display, something that I noticed when I used this device at the outdoor BLU booth at CES. But in terms of software, it's running a custom skin on top of Android 4.4.2 KitKat, and I am told that Android Lollipop will be released for this device in June, so that is great news. The most unusual thing about this device is that there is no app drawer though, so all your apps will be presented on the home screens, sort of similar to iOS. And all of the app icons will also be square in shape, even if they're not really intended to be. So on one hand, it sort of creates unity, but on the other hand, certain apps just don't really look all that great, since many of the stock Google apps have a white box around the icons. It does have its own smart gestures though. Most of them can be found on many flagship devices from larger phone manufacturers, but they include Smart Dial, Smart Answer, Pause Alarm, Double Click Wake, or basically double tap to wake up the screen, Quick Operating, and Smart Remind. Now, Quick Operating is kind of cool. You can draw shapes on the lock screen to activate certain apps like the camera, the music player, your contacts, and messaging application. I also love being able to double tap the display to wake up my phone. I think that's awesome, and it really should be a feature on every phone if you ask me. I will note that it does eat away at the battery life more so than when the feature is turned off though, so definitely keep that in mind. The lock screen itself though has a lock screen widget that gives you access to the camera, so you can take pictures or record videos directly from the lock screen. You can also turn on the torch or flash on your phone to act like a flashlight. And then I thought this was super unusual. It's an option to receive a fake call to get yourself out of awkward situations. Yeah, that's right. You can tap on this and like 15 seconds later, your phone rings from an unknown caller and you hear this kid on the other line saying, "Hi, can you send me your file as soon as possible, please?" He says this repeatedly and it's incredibly creepy, possibly the creepiest thing I've ever heard in my life. But I've just never really heard of this being a feature on a smartphone, so I thought it was definitely worth sharing. I also want to mention that the BLU Vivo Air does have an octa-core processor built inside of here that manages to perform pretty well and keeps things pretty smooth for the most part. It does feature a MediaTek processor that doesn't perform as well as a Snapdragon processor, so you will notice some stuttering here and there that will not be very aesthetically pleasing. I mean, multitasking does work well, although in order to switch between apps, you need to hold down the menu button. But you can only do that when you're at the home screen, because when you try and hold down the menu button when you have an app open, the menu will just pop up and nothing else will happen. So you have to press the home button and then go over and hold down the menu button from there. So it's kind of strange and definitely slows down the multitasking process. Now the camera is kind of a disappointment, as it usually is with budget smartphones. Now like I said, it features an 8 megapixel camera sensor, but it just doesn't capture that great of images. It's kind of a disappointment. I mean, you can get by, but indoor pictures are pretty grainy and not very detailed. They do have a very nice vintage appearance though, so if you're going for that, then great. But if you're looking for crisp, detailed images, then this really isn't going to be the smartphone for you, although outdoor images in good lighting will look better. So you'd think for such a thin device, the battery life would be absolutely garbage, but BLU manages to pack a 2100 mAh battery inside of here. And it's certainly not the biggest battery, but it's honestly not that bad. I mean, standby time is pretty good. I can leave this phone on overnight, and the battery life won't drop significantly. When I have a lot of smart gestures turned on, the battery life does drop more, and there is a CPU power saving mode that limits the CPU performance to conserve battery life. And so I was able to get more than 5 hours of use with this phone, which really isn't too terrible at all. Now I mentioned earlier, the BLU Vivo Air can be summed up in 3 words: thin, premium, and cheap. And we know it's thin as it measures in at just 5.1 millimeters thick. We know it's also made of premium build materials thanks to the aluminum magnesium alloy frame and Gorilla Glass 3 front and back covers. What you don't know is that this device costs just $200 off contract. I mean, for an HD display, an octa-core processor, and all the other features I mentioned earlier, you absolutely get your money's worth with this device. I mean, if you're looking for an off-contract smartphone with HSPA+, for less than $200, you may seriously want to look at the BLU Vivo Air. And you know, if you're worried about it being too thin to the point where you might break it, well, BLU includes a screen protector and case in the box, so that should help you out. But with that said, that is my review of the BLU Vivo Air. Let me know what you think of this device by leaving me a comment down below. As always, I'm Beau HD from PhoneDog.com. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one, hopefully when I'm not still sick. Alright, see you later, guys.